When I began teaching high school over 25 years ago in New York, we were required to attend a diversity training workshop. And as part of that workshop, a facilitator stood in front of a big whiteboard, and he said to us, "I want you to shout out one by one the words and phrases you've heard in your classroom that are used to describe gay people." And by the time we were finished, that whole whiteboard was filled with words. Words like faggot and fairy and homo and lots of other words that I do not feel comfortable sharing in a church setting. But what was so powerful for us was we got to see visually that the words that we use have power, and they can have the power to shame people, to devalue people, to divide people. But the words we use also can have the power to uplift and unite us. Now, one of the words that was on the board that day was the word queer. And this was a word that the gay community would soon adopt and actually take the word and take back its power. And we began to then see in gay pride marches people chanting, "We're queer, we're here, get used to it." Now, I have never felt comfortable myself referring to myself as a queer, but there was a word on that board that I loved. I didn't find it derogatory at all. I thought it was really cool. And it was a word I thought we should adopt. And that word was flamer. Don't you love it? It's like a superhero name, Flamer. And Flamer's superpower is that he ignites people's spirits and their passions, and he lights up the world. And I think that's a great name, not just for gay people, but for all of us. All of us should be called to be that light for everyone else, to flame that light so brightly. Many of you know people in your lives who are those flamers. They are such a light. They walk into a room and they light it up. And I think the reason that that term came for gay people was because I think when you step out of the darkness and the shadows and the closet and you step into your light, the truth of your being, and you're living so fully who you were created to be, you emit this great light. And all of us, gay or straight, are called to do that, to be those light bearers for the world. Now, sadly, we know that most of the world is not shining their light as brightly as they should be. They're not living life passionately and fully. They're not leading lives that are on fire. And when those people come in contact with someone of great light, they are either inspired by them or they're threatened by them. That's what happened to Jesus. And that's what happens in today's story, the Pentecost story. The disciples finally have realized their purpose. They finally understand that Jesus is telling them that it wasn't just he who was the light of the world, but that they're the light of the world. They finally got it. And so they're so full of this light, and they're so full of life and joy, that people in the crowd say, they just must be drunk. And I don't think it's any surprise that today we refer to alcohol as spirits, because it has that kind of same intoxication that the disciples were feeling. They were so intoxicated with the Spirit that they just couldn't contain themselves. Now, what exactly is Pentecost? Well, the word itself means 50th day. And what the Jews were celebrating was 50 days after Passover. And the feast was called the Feast of Shavuot. And what it meant was they were celebrating the day that Moses went up to the mountain and experienced the burning bush, the fire of spirit. Now we as Christians, our Pentecost is 50 days after Easter. And we're not celebrating Moses and the mountain and the burning bush. We're celebrating the apostles in the upper room, experiencing the fire of spirit above their heads. It's a very similar thing. And Pentecost means that we need to go to this upper place where we can experience this spirit. Now you may say to me, did that really happen? I mean, did they really have tongues of fire above their head? And were they really all speaking these different languages that they never spoke before? Well, as I told you with other Bible stories, I don't know because I wasn't there, okay? And as I told you before, I don't think it really matters whether the stories are historically accurate or just myth, because it still contains the truth. And the truth is that when we go to a place of higher consciousness, we can begin to breathe in the Spirit. Because if we look at this story metaphysically, that's exactly what it means. The apostles had to get from a surface understanding of Jesus' teachings, because that's why they never really fully got Jesus' teachings. They were on the surface level. They had to go to the upper room to see things from a higher perspective. And when they were up there, this wind came in. Now, the Latin word spiritus means breath. They were breathing in something new, some new life. And the fire symbolizes that they began to see the light more clearly. And they began to become more attuned to that voice of the Spirit within them. That's why in today's gospel, Jesus says, I'm sending you an advocate. The word advocate has voco in it. Voice means to voice. I've told you before, inside you, Spirit is speaking. It's your inner GPS. I said it stands for the God Positioning System. And that inner voice is always guiding you. But you've got to get still so that you can listen to it. You have to go lock yourself in the upper room so that you can breathe in. And that's why in prayer and meditation, a lot of it is about focusing on your breath so that you can experience this light of the Spirit. That's what we're celebrating today when we celebrate Pentecost. I have received no greater compliment from you than when after church on Sunday you say to me, Pastor Sal, I have heard these Bible stories my whole life, and your homilies help me understand them in a new way. I received that compliment with such a grateful heart, but I know that it's not me who's doing it. This is the work of the Holy Spirit. We are taking what we are learning and we're seeing it from a higher perspective. And the Spirit is working in us and through us. There is a spark of the divine light that's in you. That's the truth. You were born with it. It's in there. What your purpose is to ignite that spark and to do whatever it is you need to do to fan the flames and to shine it even brighter. Most people, as I said earlier, don't do that. You know, Henry David Thoreau had that famous quote that says, most men lead lives of quiet desperation, and they go to their graves with their song still in them. Don't go to your grave with your song still in you. Your song is what you're passionate about. What makes you enthusiastic? You know, the word enthusiasm means of God's Spirit. So what you're passionate or enthusiastic about is what you should be doing. The spiritual writer Howard Thurman said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask instead, what makes you come alive? Because that's what the world needs, people who have come alive." Now, throughout my life, I have heard people speak of how they were so passionate about their work. And although I've had very good work experiences as a high school teacher and a B&B owner, it wasn't until now, in my 50th year, that I feel what it's like to live that passionate life. And if you see light in me, it's because you've ignited that spark and you fanned that flame. 4 years ago, I walked into this church for the very first time. I wasn't a pastor back then, but I was invited to be a guest speaker that Sunday. And as I spoke that Sunday, something ignited in me. Something sparked in me. And fittingly enough, that Sunday 4 years ago was Pentecost Sunday. And so here we are, again, being reminded that all of us have a passion and a purpose and a light. And we need to do whatever it takes for us to ignite it. Now, the Sufi poet Rumi said, "Seek others who fan your flames and set your lives on fire." That's why we gather together as a spiritual community. And I love looking out and seeing all the red, because that's what we're doing, is as a spiritual community, we're seeking others who fan our flames so that we can shine our lives even brighter. That's what we are being called to do. Sadly, I think many people aren't shining their lights very brightly because they're afraid of their light. And I've shared this with you before. This is a quote from the writer Mary Ann Williamson. And I'd like to share it with you again because it fits so perfectly the Pentecost message. She said, "It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure about you. You are all meant to shine. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us. It is in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. Isn't that great? That's what Pentecost is all about. So this Pentecost Sunday, let's go do that. Let's go out and shine our lights so that we can inspire other people and give them permission to do the same. Let us all go out and be flamers. Namaste.